The cry across the stars, the night sky over the alien world was filled with fire. Their cities burned, their defenses collapsed, and their people fled into the shadows. The great empire that ruled half the galaxy had come for them. Their ships blocked out the sun, their soldiers stormed the streets, and their voice thundered across the air. Submit, or be destroyed. The people of this world were not warriors. They were farmers, healers, builders, and dreamers. Their leaders had sent messages to their allies begging for help. Days passed. No one came. The empires that promised friendship stayed silent. The powers that had once traded with them now looked away. Even their closest neighbors refused to risk angering the invaders, so the people sent one last desperate signal. It was not long, not detailed, only a cry of despair. A single voice broadcast across the stars. Please, help us. Anyone, please. That signal drifted through the void, bouncing from system to system, ignored by those who feared the enemy. To many, it was just background noise, a doomed call from a doomed world. But then, it reached Earth. Humanity was not considered important in the galaxy. Many races saw them as young, reckless, untested. They had no vast empire, no ancient fleets, no throne of power. But humanity carried something the galaxy did not understand. They remembered what it was like to be prey. They remembered what it was like to beg for mercy and be ignored, and they had sworn long ago never to let it happen again, not to themselves and not to anyone who asked. When the signal reached the human colonies, there was silence for only a moment. Then orders spread. Fleets were summoned. Weapons were armed. Engines roared. Humanity had heard the cry. On the alien world, families huddled in the ruins. Children cried as the invaders marched through the streets. The sky glowed red with fire. The people had given up hope. No one was coming. No one ever came. Then the air trembled. The invaders looked up as strange shadows fell across the sky. Ships, massive ships, dropped from orbit, their hulls glowing with heat from re-entry. They were not the Empire's vessels. They bore no known insignia. Their design was sharp, angular, built not for beauty, but for war. The invaders sneered. Another weakling race, they laughed. They come to die. But the refugees whispered in awe. Humans. The first human fleet had arrived. The flagship Iron Resolve hovered over the burning capital, its weapons locked onto the invader, ships below. Across the command deck, officers moved with sharp precision. At the center stood Admiral Corrin, his face cold, his eyes fixed on the destruction below. "Sir," a young officer said, "the enemy is occupying the city. They're executing civilians." The admiral's jaw tightened. He remembered Earth's history. He remembered the screams of old wars. His voice was low but hard as steel. "Target their warships, clear the skies, and make sure they know. Humanity answers when the helpless cry." Moments later, the heavens erupted. Human cannons roared, unleashing streams of fire that cut through the invader fleet. The Empire's ships were powerful, but they had never faced human tactics. They expected hesitation, delay, fear. Instead, they found fury. On the ground, the people cowered as explosions lit the sky. For a moment, they thought death had finally come. Then, through the smoke, they saw it. Invader warships falling, burning, shattering against the earth. Human. Fighters streaked through the air like silver arrows, tearing apart enemy formations. For the first time in days, the invaders stepped back in shock. They had expected silence. They had expected weakness. Instead, they were met with fire. A refugee child clutched her mother's hand and whispered, "Who are they?" The mother's voice shook, but her eyes filled with hope. "Humans." The humans came. Far above, transmissions spread across the galaxy. Every empire, every faction, every ruler who once ignored the signal now heard a new message. "This is Earth. One cry for help reached us, and we have answered." The galaxy stirred. Some scoffed, some feared, some watched in silence. But one truth could not be denied. Humanity was no longer silent, no longer waiting, no longer ignored. The people who were underestimated had entered the stage, and they had come with fire. In the ruins of the city, survivors lifted their heads to the sky. They did not know what humanity would do next. They did not know if this was salvation or only another kind of power, but they knew one thing with certainty. When they cried for help, the humans came. And as the fires of battle raged, whispers spread like sparks through the stars. If a single cry can bring the humans, what happens if the whole galaxy calls? The HFY. Arrival of humanity. The Empire's soldiers stood in silence as the first human ships blazed across the sky. For decades they had marched from world to world, unchallenged, feared, and obeyed. They crushed planets like insects beneath their boots. But as they looked up now, they saw something different. The human fleet did not creep into orbit with caution. It arrived like a hammer falling from the heavens. Dozens of colossal warships appeared, their hulls blackened by the heat of re-entry, their weapons glowing with power. Behind them came carriers that opened like iron jaws, releasing swarms of smaller craft. The air itself trembled under the roar of engines. The Empire commander sneered, trying to hide the unease in his voice. More prey, more fools, kill them all. But the humans had not come to be prey. They had come to hunt. In the capital city's ruins, survivors hid in broken buildings, peeking through shattered walls. They had heard stories of humans, whispers from traders who said Earth was reckless, violent, too young to survive the galaxy. But the sight above them told a different story. The sky burned. Human ships cut through the clouds like blades. Explosions lit the heavens as their weapons roared. Entire squadrons of Empire craft were shredded in seconds. The humans moved with frightening precision, their fighters flying in formation so tight they looked like one living machine. A refugee elder, trembling, whispered, "The galaxy told us they were weak, but look at them." Aboard the flagship Iron Resolve, Admiral Corrin stood at the command deck, his face illuminated by the glow of battle screens. He watched the Empire's fleet scatter, their once perfect lines broken like glass under a hammer. "Dow, not let them regroup," Corrin ordered. "Push them back. They wanted war. They will have it." The officers moved like a storm, feeding commands into the battle systems. Human warships unleashed salvos of missiles and beams of light that burned through armor. Enemy vessels exploded one after another, their wreckage raining down onto the world below. For centuries, the Empire had thought itself untouchable, but in minutes, the humans tore holes in their pride. On the ground, the invaders who once marched with arrogance now looked to the sky with fear. Their support ships were burning, their commanders' orders filled with panic. Some soldiers fled into the shadows, abandoning the civilians they had been terrorizing. Others held their ground, but their eyes betrayed them. They had never seen a fleet fight like this, and among the ruins, the refugees' fear slowly turned into something else. Hope. Children pointed to the sky, their voices trembling with awe. The humans. They're winning. The adults did not answer, but their hearts began to believe. But this was only the beginning. As the battle raged, the galaxy itself took notice. Across distant systems, signals arrived, reports of Earth's fleet moving, of the Empire being pushed back for the first time in living memory. Leaders of great powers sat in silence, their faces pale as they read the news. "This is impossible," one whispered. "They were never meant to interfere," said another. "If they can burn the Empire," a third muttered, "what happens when they turn their fire on us?" The galaxy had ignored the cry for help. Earth had not. And now, the galaxy trembled. The battlefield, Admiral Corrin's voice echoed across the human channels. "Mark this day. They cried for help once, and humanity answered. The galaxy will learn what that means." The soldiers on the ground moved with the same fury as their fleets. Human Marines descended in drop pods, their armor black and unyielding, their weapons blazing with deadly precision. They landed in the heart of the Empire's occupied city, cutting through enemy forces like fire through dry wood. The refugees who had once hidden in fear watched as human soldiers shielded them, guiding them to safety. The humans did not come as conquerors but as defenders, yet in their eyes burned a rage that made even the Empire's warriors tremble. One alien boy, no older than 10, stared up at a human marine towering above him. The soldier reached down, lifting him into safety. The boy whispered in disbelief, "You came for us." The marine's voice was calm but fierce. "We always answer." As the last of the Empire's ships broke formation and fled into deep space, the battle ended in silence. The skies were filled with wreckage and smoke, the ground littered with broken machines. The humans had not only won, they had shattered the invaders' pride. But this victory was not quiet. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. They answered. They burned an Empire fleet. Earth is no longer silent. Some feared, some plotted, some swore they would crush humanity before it grew stronger. But others, those who had once given up hope, now looked to the stars with new courage. On the alien world, the survivors gathered in the ruined square. They watched as human medics treated the wounded, as engineers began repairing what had been destroyed. The once helpless people now stood with tears in their eyes. The elder who had whispered before raised his voice, trembling but proud. "We sent one cry into the dark, one cry, and the humans came with fire." The people cheered. Children clung to their families. And high above, the human flag shimmered, in the smoke carried by soldiers who stood watch over the ruins. But for Admiral Corrin, this was only the start. He looked out at the stars, his eyes cold and unyielding. This was one world. Tomorrow it will be another. The galaxy thinks humanity is still weak. Let them think it. They will learn soon enough. The cry for help had been answered. The fire had been unleashed. And the galaxy was about to discover what humanity truly was. Fire unleashed. The Empire's retreat was only temporary. Across the horizon, more of their warships arrived, blotting out the sun. Their commanders screamed, in fury, ashamed that humans had broken their pride. They would not allow such humiliation to stand. The sky darkened with enemy vessels. Their cannons glowed, their troops gathered in ranks, and their voices roared, "Crush the humans, burn their fleet, end this now." But humanity had come prepared. From the Iron Resolve, Admiral Corrin watched the Empire regroup. His officers reported wave after wave of ships incoming, their numbers vast. Any ordinary force would have broken, but Corrin's expression did not change. His voice was calm, steady, and cold. "Deploy the phalanx formation, release the firestorm batteries. It is time to show them how humanity fights." At his command, the human fleet shifted. Warships moved into precise patterns, their armor locking into defensive lines. Carriers spread wide, releasing drones that swarmed like locusts across the battlefield. Frigates darted between cruisers, forming a wall of steel. The galaxy had never seen such coordination from a so-called young race. Then the fire came. The first volley erupted like thunder. Human cannons unleashed streams of plasma that lit the sky in burning arcs. Missiles tore through space, weaving between enemy shields before detonating in bright, blinding fire. Fighters screamed downward, cutting through enemy formations with impossible speed. The Empire's fleet shook under the assault. Ships shattered one after another, explosions tearing holes in their mighty lines. Their commanders barked orders, but their voices cracked with fear. On the ground, survivors stared upward. The sky itself looked alive, painted with streaks of light and fire. It was not a battle, it was a storm. Humanity had unleashed its fury, and the Empire was drowning in it. In the ruins of the capital city, Syrian, the alien child saved earlier, watched from a broken rooftop. He clutched his mother's hand as they stared at the burning heavens. "Mother," he whispered, "the humans fight like they are endless." His mother's voice trembled, but her eyes shone with awe. "No, they fight like they cannot afford to lose. On the battlefield, The Empire tried to counterattack. Their ships launched barrages of energy beams. Their ground forces pressed into the ruins. Their war machines lumbered through the streets. But the humans were ready. Marine squads fought block by block, their armor scarred, their weapons roaring. They moved with ruthless efficiency, covering each other, pushing forward without hesitation. Where one fell, another stepped in. Where enemy fire burned, humans returned it with double the fury. One Empire officer shouted to his troops, "Do not fear them, they are only men." But then he watched as a squad of human soldiers faced down a war machine 3 times their size. Instead of retreating, they charged. Explosives ripped the machine apart, its burning wreckage collapsing onto the street. The humans stood tall in the flames, their eyes cold, their weapons still raised. The officer's voice faltered. They are monsters." High above, Admiral Corrin's fleet executed maneuvers the Empire had never seen. Ships split into strike groups, surrounding enemy vessels before tearing them apart from all sides. Drone swarms slipped past defenses, detonating deep inside reactors. Every move was calculated, every strike designed not just to win, but to terrify. The Empire had faced countless foes before. They had beaten kings, crushed warriors, erased entire nations. But they had never faced humans. They had never faced a people who fought not for conquest, not for pride, but for survival and for vengeance. By nightfall, the battle was a graveyard. Empire ships burned across the skies, their wreckage falling like meteors. Cities glowed, with fire where enemy forces had been wiped out. The once invincible invaders were broken, scattered, and silent. Admiral Corrin's voice echoed across human channels. "Mark this day. The galaxy will remember it. They cried for help once, and we answered with fire." The refugees gathered in the city square, their eyes wide with disbelief. For days they had lived in fear, expecting death at every turn. Now they stood among the ruins, their enemies destroyed, their children alive. A refugee leader stepped forward, bowing before the human commander on the ground. "We thought the galaxy had forgotten us. We thought no one cared, but you came. Why?" The human's helmet shifted, revealing tired eyes, but a steady gaze. "Because you cried for help, and humanity does not ignore cries in the dark." Word spread through the crowd. Some wept, others whispered, and some shouted with joy. Humanity had not only saved them, they had proven something greater. But beyond the battlefield, the galaxy trembled. Empires that once ignored Earth now held secret meetings. Some swore to destroy humanity before it grew stronger. Others whispered of alliances, hoping to be spared from Earth's wrath. And everywhere whispers carried the same words. They answered. They burned an Empire fleet, and they are only beginning. On the iron resolve, Admiral Corrin looked into the stars, his voice low and grim. This was only the first fire. The galaxy will see more. We did not come here for glory. We came because someone called for help. Let them all remember. If they call again, humanity will answer. He turned, his eyes like steel. And we will answer with fire. Fear spreads in the galaxy. The smoke of battle still hung over the ruined alien world, but far beyond its skies, the galaxy was already changing. The news of Earth's victory traveled faster than light, carried by frightened merchants, broken invader survivors, and hidden observers. In less than a week, the entire galaxy knew the truth. A single cry for help had reached Earth, and humanity had answered with fire. On distant worlds, leaders gathered in hidden chambers. Massive holograms flickered above long tables as rulers of alien empires argued in fear and anger. They were supposed to be weak, one shouted, his scaled hand slamming against the table. Humans were not meant to challenge fleets of the Empire. Another leaned forward, her eyes glowing cold. You do not understand. They are not fighting for conquest, they fight for something more dangerous, principle. They answer calls that no one else dares to hear. If this continues, every desperate race will call for humans, and then, their fire will spread across the stars. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some demanded war against Earth before it was too late. Others whispered of forming alliances, fearing what might happen if they stood alone. For the first time, the galaxy did not laugh at humanity. It feared them. In the refugee camps on the rescued world, survivors gathered in silence as human soldiers distributed food and medicine. They looked at the humans with awe, still unable to believe they were alive. Parents told their children the story again and again. We called for help, and the humans came. A young boy stared at the stars with wide eyes. If they came for us, maybe one day they will come for others too. His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes, child, but remember this. When they come, they do not bring silence. They bring fire. Meanwhile, the remnants of the defeated empire seethed in rage. In a war council aboard their surviving flagship, their commanders shouted at one another, "How could a primitive world destroy our fleets? They will spread like disease. We must burn them now before they grow stronger." But their supreme warlord stood silent, staring into the void. His voice, when it came, was heavy with dread. "We have made a mistake. We thought them prey, but they are predators hiding in plain sight. If one plea can summon such fury, then humanity is more dangerous than any empire." The council fell silent. They all knew the truth. The humans could no longer be ignored. On Earth itself, the reaction was different. Families wept as they watched broadcasts of their fleets saving distant lives. Some cheered, proud that humanity had shown its strength. Others trembled, fearing the galaxy would strike back. But among Earth's leaders there was no doubt. Humanity had stepped onto the stage, and there was no turning back. "Prepare the fleets," one general said. "The galaxy has seen our fire. Now they will test it, and when they do, we must burn brighter." In the halls of alien academies, young students whispered about the humans. Some spoke of fear, others of admiration. Many dreamed of calling Earth themselves if their people were ever attacked. Slowly, quietly, humanity was becoming a symbol, not of weakness, but of hope. Yet hope was a dangerous thing, for with hope came enemies. The council fell silent. They all knew the truth. The humans could no longer be ignored. On Earth itself, the reaction was different. Families wept as they watched broadcasts of their fleets saving distant lives. Some cheered, proud that humanity had shown its strength. Others trembled, fearing the galaxy would strike back, but among Earth's leaders there was no doubt. Humanity had stepped onto the stage, and there was no turning back. "Prepare the fleets," one general said. "The galaxy has seen our fire. Now they will test it, and when they do, we must burn brighter." In the halls of alien academies, young students whispered about the humans. Some spoke of fear, others of admiration. Many dreamed of calling Earth themselves if their people were ever attacked. Slowly, quietly, humanity was becoming a symbol, not of weakness but of hope. Yet hope was a dangerous thing, for with hope came enemies. The galaxy's greatest council, the Concord of Races, met. In secret, representatives from dozens of species sat in a ring of stone, their voices rising in panic. If they answer one cry, they will answer more. They will become the guardians of the weak. No, worse. They will become rulers, not guardians. Every desperate race will beg them for aid. And soon, Earth will command armies greater than ours. The council leader's voice was sharp. "Then what do you propose? War or alliance?" The chamber fell silent. No one answered. But every leader left with the same thought burning in their mind. Humanity could no longer be controlled. Back on the rescued world, Admiral Corrin stood at the edge of the ruins, his soldiers rebuilding what was lost. He looked at the alien children playing among the rubble, laughing for the first time in weeks. A refugee elder walked to him, bowing deeply. "You have given us back our lives," the elder said. "We will never forget this. But, Admiral, do you not fear what comes next? The galaxy will see you as a threat." Corrin's gaze remained fixed on the stars. His voice was calm, steady, unyielding. Let them see. We did not come here for fear or glory. We came because someone asked for help, and we will keep coming. That is humanity's promise. The elder's eyes filled with tears. And if the galaxy tries to stop you? Corrin's eyes narrowed. His answer was simple. Then they will burn. Across the stars, whispers grew, louder. Empires armed themselves. Refugees prayed for more cries to be answered. Traders carried tales of fleets that burned like fire in the night. And in the hearts of those who once mocked Earth, one truth now lived like a shadow. The humans were not prey. They were fire, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The lesson of fire. The world they saved was quiet now. Smoke drifted across broken cities, but laughter echoed where once there had been only screams. Families rebuilt their homes. Children played in the streets, and the survivors whispered one name again and again: humanity. But far beyond this peaceful silence, the galaxy was anything but calm. Reports spread across every star system. Fleets met in secret. Spies carried news to their masters. The story was always the same. A single cry for help had summoned Earth, and Earth had answered with fire. Some races celebrated, others trembled, and many sharpened their blades. In the war chambers of the empire that had been defeated, rage boiled like fire in a furnace. The warlord slammed his fist against the table, his voice a growl. We are not beaten. We lost a battle, not the war. Humanity thinks itself strong. Then we will gather every fleet, every soldier, and crush them before they spread. But one of his generals shook his head. His voice was low, almost fearful. My lord, they do not fight as others do. They do not fight for territory or gold. They fight because they cannot ignore a cry. To defeat them, we would need to silence every voice in the galaxy. The warlord's eyes darkened. Then that is what we must do. Yet even he knew, deep in his heart, it was already too late. The humans had lit a flame that could not be put out. On Earth, in the Council of Humanity's leaders, the debate raged. Some argued for caution. Others called for expansion. They will come for us. One general warned, we must strike first. No, said another. We will not be the empire we just destroyed. We do not conquer. We answer. At last, Admiral Corrin's voice cut through the noise. He stood tall, his uniform scarred from battle, his eyes hard as steel. The galaxy must learn one thing about us, he said. We are not hunters, nor are we prey. We are fire. When someone cries in the dark, we will answer. And when we answer, we will burn away those who bring despair. The chamber fell silent. No one argued. Humanity's path had been chosen. Back on the saved world, a great ceremony was held in the ruins of the capital. Survivors gathered in the streets, their banners waving, their voices rising in song. They built a monument in the city square, a single beacon carved from stone, its message written in both their language and in human words. One cry was enough. Human soldiers stood among them, silent guardians. Refugee children carried flowers to the monument, placing them at its base. For them, the humans were not monsters, not conquerors, but saviors who came when no one else would. But beyond this celebration, shadows grew. In hidden corners of the galaxy, powers plotted. Some prepared fleets to challenge Earth. Others whispered of alliances with humanity, hoping to gain their protection. But one thing united them all. None could ignore humans anymore. The galaxy had changed forever. Later that night, as stars glittered above the broken city, Admiral Corrin stood with the alien elder he had saved. They looked out over the monument together. You have given us hope again, the elder said softly. But you have also brought fear. They will come for you. The galaxy will not let this go. Corrin's face was calm, his eyes on the stars. Then let them come. They will learn the same lesson your people learned. The elder's voice trembled. And what lesson is that? Corrin's reply was a whisper, but it carried the weight of a storm. That humanity does not ignore cries for help. That when the helpless call, we will come, and when we come, we will come with fire. Far away in the dark void between worlds, the last survivors of the defeated empire limped home. Their ships were broken, their pride shattered, their fleets in ruins, and among them, whispers spread like disease. They are not weak. They are not young. They are not merciful. They are fire. And so the galaxy learned the truth. The cry of one desperate world had awakened something ancient in humanity, something forged from centuries of struggle, pain, and survival. They had been underestimated, ignored, mocked. But now, the galaxy feared them because humanity did not bring silence. They brought fire, and every race, friend or foe, would remember this lesson. One cry was all it took.